just to ask, I mean, because I said no, I already asked you and you said that if you are sensitive but you don't know what you're doing, it's best not to meddle. But do you think, like, talking in a greater point of view, no, from a more global vision, would it be a good idea for people like you or other people who are exorcists and stuff like that, who have the experience and the stamina and the knowledge to go and try to release everybody in these kinds of haunted places? Is it a good idea to meddle with it, or is it best to just let it be? And what do you think about it?
Well, of course, the difficulty, the complexity of these kind of places, which of course are very extreme locations of where you might just walk into an etheric horror movie, because you don't encounter just remnants or apparitions, but you will meet people who have been tortured or mutilated and gassed and all these kind of things. So again, you have to be prepared. And then, of course, you cannot just say, I'm going to collectively gather all these remnants, all these echoes of the past. I'm going to guide them out and treat them all the same. I don't think that's a wise idea altogether, because every of these souls, these personalities, have their own history. So they also have their own mazal or karma that they bring with them. And so that has to be taken into account. What are you going to do with it? So I am not very much in favor of saying, I'm just going to walk into this particular location and free everything that I'm going to see there. I think it's a very naive way of dealing with these kind of things.
Hello, Synchronauts. It's really nice to have you back. Today is November 3rd, 2025, Gregorian date. And I am back with my dear teacher, Mike Bais from Circle of Avalon. Welcome, dear Mike.
Thank you again. Very happy to be with you.
Me too.
Hasn't been a long time.
Yeah, such a long time. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away when we last met.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was such an interesting conversation we had last week, talking about the thinning of the veil and how it can open portals, and then we can jump from summoning to exorcism. And you gave us a really great foundation of what happens, or why one should be mindful of that. But we didn't really get into the topic. So today we're going to do that. Maybe, I don't know, because you have so much information. The PowerPoint presentation you prepared for us is really amazing. So I don't know if we will finish today, but let's do our best and see how far along we get. Yeah?
Yes.
So I'm going to start sharing now our presentation. And I say our because I added a little something in there, which we will talk about in a moment. And I mentioned that last program. But maybe if we can have a little recap of what we talked about last time. Do you want to do it? Just a little recap. Of course. Yeah?
Yeah. So, let's start from here, where we are at the moment. And of course, our first program was last week, before actually the official time of year, what they call Samhain, Halloween, and the day of All Saints and All Souls, the 1st and the 2nd of November. And then the thinning of the veil. We talked about not just the, let's say, more superficial way of dealing with that idea, which we see in movies and all kinds of stories, but also the more esoteric background of it. We talked about the etheric field as a veil between the seen world, the physical world, and the unseen so-called spiritual world, which is really too much of a general way of talking about the spiritual world. But the subtle dimension between the physical world and everything beyond that starts with the etheric field, an electromagnetic field, which is a part of our physical body. So it seems to be quite personal, and at the same time it's transpersonal and in between everything. That field is really within and around everything within nature, around the mineral level, everything to do with stones and mountains, with the vegetable level, it's just around trees and grasses and flowers, and of course the animal level. So it is really the substance through which we communicate more subtly, and where we also find thoughts and images and ideas. It's the realm of dreams. And it's that veil between our ordinary perception and a perception inside of that field that is more tangible, more open to the inner perception of our spiritual nature. And therefore, some people may feel, palpate within that field, or see or hear even certain things.
Oh, yes.
That's just in general. And we talked about nature, so going in nature, for example, in twilight passages in the early morning, or towards the time of the evening when the sun is setting, when you may have these experiences a little bit more. And that not, of course, everything is just exciting or even a bit scary, but it is a way of also coming into contact with authentic nature spirits, sometimes, of course, with the deceased souls, and with the ancestral line, which is, of course, a very important part of the Day of All Saints and All Souls.
Yeah, definitely, especially here in Mexico, when we do the Dia de Muertos, the Day of the Dead, it's like we're honoring our ancestors and our loved ones who have already transcended to the other side of the veil. And we had a little conversation before recording, and I was telling you that some people think, especially in the Christian branches of belief, that we are adoring death. And I have to make it very clear that that's not it. What we do I mean, there is a whole thing going on, which is true. Like there are some, I don't know what, and maybe we can talk about it some other time, but here in Mexico, they have begun a cult to death. Like really, really a cult to death. There is the image of La Santa Muerte, and it's like, that's very, very scary. And people who do bad things, they find refuge in that image or in that being. But in general, talking about Dia de Muertos, what I can tell you is categorically no, we are not adoring death. What we are doing is laying this beautiful altar to connect with the ancestral line, and just to, and it's more, and we talked a little bit about it also in our last program, that it's more for the living than for the dead, obviously. It's a way for us to keep the memory alive of those who came before us. So it's really about family and tradition. And this is a relatively new tradition also. It's a product of syncretism, because some people might think, oh, those are like Aztec or Mayan traditions. No, the tradition began when the two worlds collided. All the cultures, which is not just the Aztecs, there were many different groups that were here in Mexico. All these originary people, when they started interacting with the people who came from Europe, because we have to remember, Spain didn't exist as a country. Like Spain and Mexico, they were born together, actually, as entities. But it's not only people from what we know today as Spain who came over to the Americas. I mean, there is a whole country that speaks Dutch in South America, no? So there's people who came from the United Kingdom, from France, from Spain, from Portugal, from many different countries, and they brought their traditions here, no? And what happened is we created this new tradition of Dia de Muertos, the syncretism, and it's meant nowadays what it means, not before. Before, obviously, it was the Catholics wanting to integrate, no, the paganistic rituals that were found here before. But it's more like, before it was a thing of integration, and now it's a thing of tradition. And we are honoring our ancestral lines. And you said something really beautiful that stuck to me. Well, many things stuck with me from our last conversation, but this idea that our ancestors, even though they are already like their personality dissolves, you explained that to us in our last program, talking about where we arrive in Jacob's ladder, Kabbalistically speaking, but how part of that stays in us, in our DNA, and we can tune into that to receive information or to connect with that ancestral line. And we talked about the Lion King and Mufasa and Simba doing that. And I think that what we're doing in Mexico during this time is precisely that, no? And there's a very famous movie by Disney called Coco. I haven't been able to watch it. Why? Because it came out on the year that my mother died. So I haven't been able, and I'm a crab, I'm a sun in Cancer, so I cry like a river all the time. So I haven't been able to face it yet. I'm still waiting. But from what people have told me about the movie, well, that's it. Now we're trying to connect with the ancestors in a way that kind of like Simba did with Mufasa. And it's really a party for the living rather than so we are celebrating life beyond death, which I think is important to note. But at the same time, this need, and maybe that's why, well, I don't know how many Mexicans delve into Ouija, probably a lot now that I think about it, but many people might not feel so curious in Mexico about going to the paranormal for the purposes of connecting with their ancestors. For other, because we are very curious, we're like cats, no? We're very curious and then we get in trouble, but for that purpose, at least we don't do that. So I'm gonna share the next image so that we can get into that topic precisely of the Ouija and stuff.
Sure. But well, and something I wanted to add before I forget about the cult behind death, or the phenomenon of death. It's I think this is also a time to become appreciative of death, not to honor it, to worship it. But like in the classical ancient world, there was a deity, of course, of death, whether it's Father Time, or it's Kronos, or Saturn, or it's Kali, and many others, of course. And they are very, of course, needed within the whole cycle of time and space. There cannot be any life without death. So to have that spiritual maturity, that stance towards death itself as being appreciative, as a complete part of God's creation, that is very important. That's also included within this spirit of the year.
Yeah.
And to live with it, like our ancestors did, the ones who really lived with the land, and they were in connection with death because they were confronted with it all the time. The land dying, or the cattle dying, and everything. So, and they were appreciative. They would sing the soul of the grasses or of the animal, of their cattle. They would sing it into the next field of experience. And it was just an appreciation of the entity of death. And that is very important, I think. Yeah.
I just remember the story that they do this in the UK, that when somebody dies close to the family, and if the family has, like, they keep bees, like the owner will go and tell the bees that somebody has died. Like they have that tradition to include, as you say, they include nature. And I think it's very important. And at the same time, if death were not needed in creation, it would not exist. So it plays a role. We need to be understanding that it plays a role. And I believe, that's my personal belief, that having traditions as Halloween or the Day of the Dead or Samhain, it helps us to be at peace with the fact that we're all going to die one day, and that it's okay, and that life prevails. So that's why these kinds of rituals and celebrations, they are very important, so long as you stay in that lane, no? Because if you jump into what we're going to talk about right now, which is trying to use the paranormal or certain rituals to try to connect with our ancestors or those who have died, then we might open portals to God knows what, and it's not very easy to close. So we were talking about a little bit about the Ouija last time, and you gave us a very good background and context about it. But I wanted to show you because I said that I would add this to our presentation.
Yeah, yeah, it's so extremely funny. Yeah,
It is
and they
funny and
forgot
scary.
to. Yeah, and it's good. That's just a cross actually including, not a hammer and nails. So it's
Yeah,
it's
that's
quite
very
a
promising.
friendly game, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but I just wanted to show it. Like, what do you think about it, Mike? Just looking at the image and everything, what does it evoke on
yeah,
you?
well, you can always give it a go. But yeah, with these kind of things, it's so easy to be misled by our own psyche, not per se the game itself or the method, but um, it's quite dangerous in that respect that our own psyche can be misled and or can be manipulated, and we don't even know it ourselves. And this
Yeah.
has happened many, many times. Um, can you get the genie out of the bottle, but to get it back in, that's a different game
Mm,
altogether.
yeah.
So that's why we have authentic spiritual traditions where you go on a very enduring and test and tried enterprise. And like here, of course, we have the Tree of Life behind me. So you have something that ancestors, that we have the ancestors again, have tested and tried for us, and they have transmitted it to us. So it's a safeguarded way to make contact, for example, with the spirit of Christ, or with the ancestral line of a tradition.
Mm.
And even then, you have to test what is coming your way, and not take it in and swallow it whole without testing the things that are coming to you.
That's
And
very
and this,
important.
of
Yeah.
course, and it's the same in daily life. There's so much rubbish, of course, coming our way through television and media, whatever it is. We have to be
Mhm.
very discerning about what's coming in. And it's the
Yeah.
same with these kind of things. And unfortunately, a lot of people, with exceptions there, of course, who buy these kind of things or the Ouija board, they have no clue what they're doing. And often they're vulnerable because maybe there's somebody died and they want to come in contact.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's why the point of departure is not very favorable for these people,
Hmm.
because of the state that they're in. And then you need a very good guide to know what's going on if you come into contact with something or someone.
That's right.
That's what I think about these kind of board games. And I think
Yeah.
they're made for the commercial market anyway, and not to have an authentic experience of Christ. But that is my opinion about it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you. And if you look at the board, I mean, just look at God's face. Like that that doesn't really even look appealing. It looks very scary to me. Um, and
Yeah.
and you were just talking about, for example, we use the Tree of Life and Jacob's Ladder to connect, but it's not like we're gonna use it like a board and do things on it. No, it's more like it gives us a background to understand
Mhm.
what our position is while we are incarnated and all the other layers of energy that we have, which you talked about in our last program,
Yeah.
where you can find it, and then how you can tune into that voice of your higher self, so to speak, to call it in a certain
Yeah.
way, or
Mhm.
angels, because you have taught me as well that we can connect with the angels and archangels and all that, but also be very
Yeah.
mindful, as you say, because there are entities who disguise themselves as a real thing, and you have
Yeah.
to, as you say, test it. No, like if this is real, like
Yeah.
I need say like a very very clear sign that this is for good, and if
Yeah.
not, then just be very very careful because yeah, I've had those experiences before. One is very naive and you
Yeah.
think because if one might think, I mean, that was my case anyways, that oh, if I'm just calling for the good, if I'm calling for the angels, I'm calling for the light, then nothing bad will come.
Yeah.
Think about
Yeah.
it twice. No, you have to
We
be
wish.
very very
Yeah.
careful. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, a lot of stories is where the so-called devil or any kind of demon comes in a disguise that's extremely seductive and charming.
Yeah.
And it will not come in that particular kind of fairy tale or Hollywood movie kind of way with horns and everything most of the time. And it dresses up in certain people that you meet in the street or or wherever it is. And or it can be you in some disguise in some days. And if you don't know, you are just fulfilling that function in the world, maybe for yourself or someone else. Yeah. So
that's true.
It's very important to be very vigilant and always, like you said, ask the right questions. Does it bring me closer to the light, or does it bring me closer to unity? Does this decision make me more whole or not? So anyone who wants to try to do the Ouija board, does the answer that came out of this really bring me closer to wholeness, and wholeness with other people, of course, because that's our responsibility in spiritual work. And there are many other ways of testing what is coming your way. The greatest gift, as we say in Kabbalah, that we have as a human being is free will. And everything good and of the light will honor your free will. It will not go against it. It will just advise you, instruct you. Yeah. And you have to make the choice. It's your responsibility. And so that's another important thing. And the voice of let's say the good, the angelic voices, they will not interrupt you. They will not force you. They will not make you to do things. They will advise you, and they will come when you are ready for it and be silent enough to hear them.
Yes.
That's often not the case with, let's say, the more darker aspects of the spiritual world.
Yeah, actually, one thing that I learned with the tarot course from this group in Mexico, and they're based on Builders of the Adytum, and they say, like, how do you recognize that voice? If the voice is telling you, oh, you're the best, you're the reincarnation of Cleopatra, and you're amazing, and everybody is like not good enough for you, things like that, then you know that's not the voice. Like if it's gonna be sweet talking to your ear, that's not it.
Yeah.
So I think that everything that you just said, it really makes sense now how to be mindful, because when you were saying, no, like these beings might appear in a very attractive way, and I just remember that series Lucifer, it's on Netflix now. If the devil showed up like that to me, I would be like, I would be really tempted, of course, no? Like,
I would be in trouble.
Yeah, like, oh, that looks nice, no? Like, give me some of that. But but you have to be mindful, because some things that look really nice on the outside, you have to really pierce into that to look at the truth behind it, because it can be dangerous, even though they look really good. But no, be careful, be mindful, and be careful.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, ready for our next slide?
Sure, I am. Yeah. Where are we going?
Oh, well, you tell me. You prepare the presentation. You're leading the way. I'm just following.
I tried to find some pictures with some, as it says, apparitions that may be a little bit more like documented by people who made photographs, and they saw other things than the physical people. And of course, there's a lot to say about these kind of photographs, and that some things may be, trickery, or they may be false, especially today, or it may be just a certain glitch within the mechanism of the camera. And of course, you have the real deal. You have the real apparitions, where there are things within the etheric field that are not there physically, and somehow they can be picked up within the electromagnetic field of the photo itself. That is possible, and they become like subtly visible on the physical screen of the photo itself. And some people find messages within it, or they are family members who come to have a look at a funeral, for example, or a family gathering, which is sometimes quite, I would say, authentically the case, because there are certain moments within the year when, like with the Day of the Dead, or Day of All Souls and Saints, especially Day of All Souls, when there are family members gathering, not literally the family members, but at least the spirit of those members who gather together, who are curious about what's going on to the current state of the family or the group, whatever they're doing. Yeah.
So, question. I'm beginning with the questions now. So, in this case, because we were talking in our last program about the fact that when somebody dies or when we die, we're gonna dissolve. Our personality will dissolve. But what happens in these cases? Because obviously, I mean, the natural thing would be for when we die, our spirits, they just leave, no? They leave the earth and we don't get stuck in here. But you are talking about maybe some of these spirits staying behind. So what would be the difference between people who stay behind or apparitions? Because I remember, I think it was a couple of years ago, I listened to a podcast by David Goddard, who has been your teacher as well. And he was explaining in that podcast the difference between apparitions, which is like actually people who are stuck, and then just like the etheric imprint that stays behind, like in a loop, which is not the real person, but just like something that's like a cassette tape, no, where you would record something and it would stay there.
It's a remnant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an echo of the real thing.
Exactly. So can you tell us what would be the difference, please?
Yeah, of course. Well, of course, it's a technical matter of what you would call an apparition. But when let's not call it spirit, but call it the what is actually coming forth out of the etheric field in a psychological way, which is the small kind of mind or the ego, with all its constructs of masks and everything, our emotions, what we call me within life, that will dissolve. So that's the ego. That's called the ego. And if everything goes well, that will dissolve together with the body at physical death. That's the normal, natural thing to do. Some of these imprints, they are stuck because of a traumatic thing, like an accident. And at the spot, the location of the accident, people might get stuck, like in a traffic accident or whatever it is. Or on battlefields or concentration camps, people get stuck there for all, of course, the understandable reasons. That's definitely an apparition. And then you have the ones who, then you have the simple imprint. So not with any background of trauma, whatever it is. And that's also unnatural to a certain degree. And you can still see like a mirror image or an echoing of the person who has lived and is no longer there. But it's not the person. That's very important to understand. It's not the person itself. It's like an echoing or a mirror image of a mirror image.
Wow.
And people sometimes still want to communicate with the image itself. And that's actually what happens with these kind of Ouija board kind of things. They try to invade the field. They don't know it, of course, but they've tried to invade the field where we find these etheric remnants of people, their ego. And of course, in the case of people who want to free these stuck egos and free them from the field of this experience, that kind of liberation act, of course, that is very important to do. And some people are very good at it because they are not just very sensitive to the field, but they can also communicate to these people. And it's a great gift. They can set these people free.
Yeah. Actually, that was a question that I wanted to ask you for this program, because you mentioned that you know a lady who is very sensitive, no, and she went to one of those concentration camps and she was aware of all the beings who are still like these remnants you're talking about.
Yeah.
And the question that I have is, how much of a good idea is that to intervene if you have that sensibility? Like, for instance, if I can sense that there is like this apparition stuck there, whatever, is it a good idea for me to try and meddle with it, or is it best to just leave it to the experts? What would you say about that?
Well, you have to, being sensitive is good because you're on the receptive side of the story. But on the other side, you have to know what you're doing, because you have to have strong nerves. Because picking up things is one side of the whole story. But then, of course, dealing with is coming your way, which is not maybe always pleasant. These may be very disruptive spirits.
Yes.
I mean, to a certain degree, they cannot harm you physically, but psychologically and emotionally, they really can disturb things.
Yes.
So I think people need to be prepared. And I have heard of people who, out of this kind of, loving kindness, this attitude towards the deceased people, they want to do these things, but they're not ready for it, and they don't have the, let's say, the technique to deal with it. So that's the other part of the whole story.
Yeah. I'm asking because, well, I have that kind of sensitivity, although I've shut it down a lot in the past few years. But if I may, I want to share with you some stories. I don't think I've told you these stories, but for example, my mom also was very sensitive towards all of this, and she had a hard time with it. She didn't cope very well with it, as you say, because it can attack you even in a psychological level, and that happened to her. But for instance, once I remember that we had some kind of entity, because, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this has been my experience. Maybe I'm hallucinating, and then you will have to bring me back to reality. But I feel that when certain of these apparitions, they know that there's somebody who can see them and maybe free them, they will go and find that person. Like there was this TV series, this TV show with, I can't remember her name, but she could see ghosts, and the ghosts would come and find her so that she could release them, no? And there's one with Patricia Arquette called Medium as well. And so, so we had a lot, I've had a lot of paranormal experiences, and I mean a lot. And I remember that one time, we had this entity in the house that would, like, we would buy flowers. In a matter of hours, the flowers would just like fade away, and they would just like, it was horrible. And I knew this was an entity doing this. And so I got so upset that I started yelling, like, stop doing this to my flowers, I'm going to put a light for you, and I'm going to pray for you, but you have to stop doing that. And I started yelling like crazy, no? And it worked. That stopped, for instance, no? That really, but I saw that as a manifestation in the 3D. That really happened. And then a couple of times I've seen people who were dead, like in the flesh and the bone, like they were, I could see their bodies, but at the time when I saw these people, I didn't know they were dead. So it was really strange, because once it was the brother of a friend when I was in secondary school. And I remember I saw him walking by, and I was like, that's the brother of this peer, no, from school. And I found out later that he had already passed away when I saw him. And then there was this other girl. This one was very scary, because I was going to take a photocopy downtown here, and it was around this time of the year. And I was coming inside one of those places where they can do the copies for you. And when I was coming in, I almost bumped into this girl. And this is a very sad story, because this girl had disappeared the day before. She was, and it was not very common back then here where I live, because this was like, I don't know, almost 20 years ago. And I remember very distinctly that she had like these two like red stripes in the front of her hair, and the rest was black. And I almost bumped into her, and she even we laughed, no, like, oh, I'm sorry, no, I didn't mean to. And while I was waiting, because there was a lot of people, I saw that there was this poster of her saying, have you seen her? And it was the picture of in black and white though. But I was like, that's the girl that I just almost bumped into. And I was tempted to call the person, like the number, say, I just saw her. But then I said, no, this is probably a Halloween prank or whatever. So I didn't do anything about it. But it was very distinct, the way that she looked, it's not like somebody that you could see, oh, it was a blonde, there's tons of blondes or brunettes or whatever. And then a couple of days later, I found out that she sadly, she had been deceased, no? She had been killed. And I was like, what was that about? Because I could see like the flesh, we almost bumped into each other. So I'm just like, oh my God. And what do you do in these cases? Because obviously I lit a candle and I prayed for her. But when you have these kinds of abilities, it's like, it's, as you say, no, it's not always, you don't always see the nice. It can be very scary. And so I'm just like, oh my God, what would you tell people who have this ability just like me or this friend of yours? What to do in these situations? What can we do?
Well, again, if you don't want to make your profession out of it, but it happens to you because you know that you're sensitive, is always depart from the point that what you encounter is most of the time lost. So it asks, or it tries to find a way shower, like you said in the beginning. It's like they're seeking out certain people who are sensitive, and sometimes they want to be freed. Some of them know that they're actually stuck. Not all of them do, because some of them are stuck like in a loop, and you can see it because of certain actions that you can see that they perform. I will give you an example of this. So definitely the best thing is to be as if you are encountering a real person with problems, and really caring for them and really listening to them, and then see what you can do. And sometimes it's very simple, like this lady from the UK who would house sit, and she is very sensitive. I know her a little bit. And she called me one day a few years ago. She said, every time that I go here and this couple, the house owners, they go away, I always find myself in trouble here within a certain room. And the owners, they don't notice anything. I've asked them, but with me, everything happens all the time. So what can I do? So she was very sensitive, but not skillful. And I said exactly the same thing. If you want to, if it's your choice, then don't run away from it. Don't close any doors, but truly ask as if it's a person, what can you do for it? And the answer was actually quite simple. And I helped her online or through the telephone what to do. And what the person really needed is actually to get out of the house. And it didn't know how to do it. And so opening a physical door is not always the way.
Of course.
So you need to open like an imaginative portal, like an etheric portal that one can leave through. And where does one want to go is actually to visualize it, or to help the person see the things that they need to go to. And in the same light, I had that experience with a man who was deceased, and I picked up the presence in the middle of a field, and it's somewhere I was running for years. And in the morning, well, it's twilight actually, I saw this shadow almost going up and down, like walking, but like 1 meter. And so I decided to go there and to pick it up, to communicate. And there used to be his house there. So he was going inside and outside of the front door. He was looking actually where to go. And he was stuck in that loop of not knowing actually that the house was gone. He was dead.
Wow.
And, so someone needs to be guided out of that loop. And then the etheric remnant can dissolve. Yeah. So you need to have that clarity, and also that particular stance towards these kind of apparitions.
Yeah.
So prayer, lighting a candle is perfect.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good idea to help them with that. I just have another question. Like, let me see if I'm understanding correctly. When these etheric remnants are staying, the soul is still there, or the soul has already departed?
Yeah, it's a good question, because the soul is a different thing altogether. The soul, as a separate part of the psyche, knows where it is. So it is that part of us after we die, but it can also be before we die, who is conscious and is monitoring our spiritual process, our process of development as a human being. The lower psyche of the ego doesn't do it. It's not made for that. It's made to run the personal show within the world and the field of experience with society. But the soul is conscious of being conscious, and can therefore also monitor the process consciously all the time. Therefore also the soul is the thing within us that before or after physical death is measuring the balance between what we have done. So it's making up the bill, so to speak. So what are the things that were good and not good? And like in the hall of Osiris, they have the judges. Basically, that's you on the inside, and you're having this evaluation of yourself. And this also happens, but it's a different level of experience. And the more that you are in attunement with your soul, the more that you experience it consciously. But it's not the same as apparition. Definitely not.
Okay, but if this etheric part of a person stays behind, does that stop them from reincarnating or moving on into the next level, whatever it is?
Well, of course, we don't really know, but it is likely, because for the soul to move on, the temporary vehicle has to dissolve in its completeness.
Okay.
So the book has to be closed first before the new chapter can begin. So it's likely that the physical body has to decay. So there is no reason or no temptation to go back to the physical body. And also that the subtle body with the ego is completely dissolved. Yeah. That's the natural way. So
yeah. I've heard, I don't know how true this is, but for instance, they had that idea here in my family in Mexico that instead of being buried, they all wanted to be cremated, because like that, you will make sure that every part of the etheric bodies will really have nowhere to stay, you know, like it's going to be, the fire is going to take care of dissolving that connection. How true is that? Do you think that's true, or is this just
it's an idea in certain cultures, and that's why they cremate the body. That I think there may be a truth in it. At the same time, the etheric body is, of course, closely connected to the physical body. So on the one hand, if there's no life within the physical body, the etheric body has no place to stay, whether it's being burned or it's being slowly decaying by burial. But what we really need is a good, proper way of guiding the whole human being, so to speak, to the next phase. That is the most important thing.
Yes.
And it can be done by burial or by cremation. But I can't be completely saying yes to the fact that a cremation will speed things up or be more radical with it. Yeah. But again, it's different perspectives on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about it. It just came to my mind. I am also remembering another story that I've heard. It's been very popular right now, all these paranormal podcasts and stuff like that. And I remember I listened to this one where there were these people who work for the government, you know, when there's accidents and stuff like that, or they find missing people passed away, that they bring in the bodies to the morgue. And sometimes they're like clutched and they cannot, no, and they can't like really do their work because the body's completely stiff, no? And for example, one of the guys who was interviewed, he said that when he found this one particular man who was in a very tight, stiff position, he started talking to the person and said, you know, you need to relax because now we have found you, your family is waiting for you. We need to make you handsome so that you can come back to your family and they can give you proper burial. And he was saying that as he was talking to the body, that it started relaxing. And then he could do his work. And I mean, it blows my mind because that explains what this connection is still there somehow. And if the etheric part is there listening, maybe it can also like still have a bit of a connection to the body, no?
Sure. No, it can. And especially when the etheric field is still more or less intact. And it can still have an emotional effect on the physical body. And of course, apart from the fact that the rigor mortis is a very natural effect on the physical body when it's dying. This is, I think, quite possible that there can be all kinds of effects, even crying of the body after a few days. And of course, there can be physical explanations for this, biological explanations. But it can be definitely that the etheric body is still intact a few days, and there is still an emotional charge within the body. And it can be angry, it can be very emotional, sad, and even happy. I mean, this beautiful man here in Holland, belonging to one of my Kabbalah groups, he was 88. He was such a sweet soul, and he died recently. And they said he had such a lovely smile on his face because the whole family was sitting downstairs. He was lying in bed, and he was not doing that bad, but he had cancer, so they knew that he was going soon. And then in between their dinner, they were going up again, and you would see him lying there. And he was completely happy. And often those people, they don't have any problems with discharging, so to speak, and just unveiling themselves from their body and from the etheric field, and they can go and go on their journey. That means the soul that goes on the next journey. The rest dissolves. The soul doesn't dissolve. It goes to the next frontier.
Yes, it's amazing how some people they don't want to go, no, they remain attached, and others they're just like, okay, it's time to go, and they just go on their merry way. It makes a huge difference. And I'm gonna come back once more talking about the concentration camps, for example, just to ask. I mean, because I said no, I already asked you, and you said that if you are sensitive but you don't know what you're doing, it's best not to meddle. But do you think, like, talking in a greater point of view, no, from a more global vision, would it be a good idea for people like you or other people who are exorcists and stuff like that, who have the experience and the stamina and the knowledge to go and try to release everybody in these kinds of haunted places? Is it a good idea to meddle with it, or is it best to just let it be? And what do you think about it?
Well, of course, the difficulty, the complexity of these kind of places, which of course are very extreme locations of where you might just walk into an etheric horror movie. Because you don't encounter just remnants or apparitions, but you will meet people who have been tortured or mutilated and gassed and all these kind of things. So again, you have to be prepared. And then, of course, you cannot just say, I'm going to collectively gather all these remnants, all these echoes of the past. I'm going to guide them out and treat them all the same. I don't think that's a wise idea altogether, because every of these souls, these personalities, have their own history. So they also have their own mazal or karma that they bring with them. Mm-hmm. And so that has to be taken into account. What are you going to do with it? So I am not very much in favor of saying, I'm just going to walk into this particular location and free everything that I'm going to see there. I think it's a very naive way of dealing with these kind of things.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers at least a part of your question. But
yeah, definitely. That's what I wanted to say. Exactly. Yeah, mm-hmm. Because many people might feel tempted. People like you and me who have this sensitivity might be feeling like, okay, if I go to a place like this, I will try to release them all, and it's not a good. Like the best thing I think is to not meddle, but maybe, and you can tell me if this is okay. Maybe we can offer a prayer if we find ourselves in such places. No, maybe offer a prayer for this entity. And that's it, no? Because I think it could be very dangerous. And I don't know if it happens that maybe some of these apparitions might get stuck to you and follow you to your home or whatever. Is that possible as well?
It is not unthinkable. Yeah, that's why it's so important that you know where you're going. I mean, you may lead certain of these remnants out of like a concentration camp or burial place, wherever it is, but then what? Where are you going to bring them? Exactly. And that's the whole thing. You need to know individually where did they come from. Not because they belong to a certain cultural ethnic group. You can say, well, just follow me. Where do they go? They are looking for their family members. You don't have a clue where they are, or their houses, and that is like more than 50 years ago in this case. So we have enough evildoers in the world, but sometimes we have also good doers who cause also problems because of that, because of their naivety. So this really takes a lot more than just storming in to a place and trying to do something good. But definitely prayer will always help, and not trying to intervene per se, but prayers for the dissolution and for peace and for them to find their home. That's another thing. But it's not up to you where they're going.
Yeah.
Per se. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Do you want to move on to the next slide?
Of course. Yeah. Go ahead. Let's see what we have.
Oh, okay. So we have a few minutes left, maybe another 10 minutes, but I think we will need many programs for this, Mike. But maybe you can.
Will, yeah.
Because I was just asking, it's nice how it's tying up. I was just asking, could these entities or energies get stuck to somebody, and then we have this? Maybe you can just give us a short introduction about this, then we can pick it up on our next program.
Yeah, of course. Apart from, take the example of these locations on the earth where terrible things happened. And you have these deceased people, and they are still in torment. Some of them are. These are also places of great disruption, and therefore they may also be places, and I'm sure they have been already, concentration camps and the like, or battlefields or prisons and those kind of things, where it is more likely to find certain forms of evil intrusion. Because there you find souls who are or tortured, so they become very disentangled with the divine. They become very they're out of harmony with things, so they're very disabled in a certain way, and the same thing with people who are living in prisons. They're out of tune, they're very vulnerable, and therefore they may be also vulnerable to a form of intrusion. And these are, so we're going into a kind of parallel subject to what we are talking about, but that's also the whole theme of the program, is these are different levels of possible evil intrusion. And so we can just go through that and see, well, what do these things mean?
Okay.
And by the way, this is an image from a movie. It's called The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Probably based upon some real documents and some real happenings. And I found it quite a good, reasonable movie, although it's still a movie. But it was I think it was a good story there to watch, also for an exorcist. So yeah. So here you have the different ways of where one what we can meet actually as a form of evil intrusion. The first seems to be very straightforward. It's temptation, and we know the great lord of temptation, the great tester, which is the shaitan or Satan in the Bible, and but every tradition has one. I mean, it's Christ, of course, who meets shaitan in the desert with the great spiritual temptations, or it is Mara who tempts the Buddha under the Bodhi tree. And many of these kind of spiritual hero types of figures, they're all being tested. When they stand within their spiritual integrity, they have attained a sense of self, then the great tempting entity of within existence comes to to have a look if you're strong enough to keep your position there. And of course, apart from these more, let's say, famous examples, everyone goes through certain temptations, from the minor ones, whatever it is, like alcohol or drugs, or I don't know. We have now, of course, the internet, social media temptation, or the how do you say that? To be completely, I forgot the word. But anyway, to be under the sway of the internet and social media. So there are many temptations on different levels of the psyche.
Yes.
And the more severe temptations come also with severe consequences. So the temptations, the spiritual temptations, are of a different order than social temptations or economical temptations per se. So by the nature of the temptations that come your way, you may also distill where you are, on what level of spiritual development you are.
Okay, but how would that be like? If you're in a higher level, the temptations will be greater? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and they will be more specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example maybe of?
Yeah, sure.
What that
so,
would look
for
like?
example, on the Tree of Life, you have the position of Tiferet here. That's the heart chakra for our viewers who don't know the Kabbalah. So that resonates with the heart chakra itself, the Anahata chakra. And it's not a natural state for most human beings to be in. So that's a centered part of ourselves. And it has certain, comes with certain qualities. Not apart from self-consciousness. Here you find self-will and also the ability to transform certain parts of your natural state into a higher state of spiritual awareness. And so it's like the motor behind spiritual evolution. That's the heart chakra.
Okay.
There you find that you are becoming more individualistic and independent from the world. So as it were, you have found a way out of the natural temptations of the world, which is like sex and just normal material stuff, these kind of things. But then you meet a temptation which resonates with the properties and abilities within the heart chakra. So there you are tested on the level of the self. So for example, that will be your inner and spiritual pride. So now you have attained this. To what extent are you vulnerable to what you have achieved? So the great teacher or guru will sooner or later be tested on the fact, can you stand your ground? Or are you very vulnerable to flattery, to your students or followers who are, always worshiping you and find you the greatest guru on the planet? Can you say that you are wrong, for example, to yourself and others? Or you always have to be right from this position?
Yeah.
So that position comes with different temptations. And if you know what they are, you can recognize them and not fall into the trap.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
And to a certain degree, you can say, well, these things are very almost like make-believe or superstitious. And you can take it literally, like some people do, like in theological circles. They say, this is the devil, truly the devil who tempts you and tries to get you off track. And another way to look at it is say, well, it's not per se something outside of yourself. It's a part of your own psyche, because everything is within you. So this temptation lies around the corner, and see if you are stable enough to resist it.
Yeah. Wow.
Either way. But for most people in the esoteric field, it's a mythological, esoteric way of looking at it.
Yeah. Okay.
If you understand what I mean.
Yeah. More subtle.
So that's temptations, and we all get them.
Yeah, of course. And, it's part of the nature, the experience of being a human. No, it's in our nature.
Yeah. And of course, there are theological circles and institutes that say, well, the human being is weak by nature, so they will never get beyond the level of temptation. While others say, well, temptation is needed for the sake of spiritual evolution.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Shaitan, the tester, has a function in our spiritual work. It's not against it per se, because the choice, the temptations themselves do not make us to fall down. It's the choice that comes from us.
That's correct. Yeah.
And that's the responsibility that we have as a human being. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Do you want an example of vexation, for example?
Sure.
Or do we not have time? Yeah.
No, yeah, sure. Like, it's something that I'm saying because of you, no, because you're in Europe and you're far later than me. I can stay another 10 minutes if you. It's up to you. Like, really. Yeah.
No. It's getting dark. The twilight is setting in, so it's a good time to continue a little bit.
Okay, yeah. You tell me when you're ready. I'm listening. So, vexation.
Yeah, sure.
Can you explain first what is vexation? Because, I mean,
it's a very particular thing, and sometimes when I explain it to people, occasionally, they're a bit shocked, like, "Oh, wow, is this possible?" Because vexation is, and it happens not frequently, I think, but on occasion, is when certain people of a certain stature spiritually, they say that they open themselves, they become like available to a form of intrusion, because they ask to be tested. This happened to Teresa of Avila, for example, and to some saints in some greater and smaller degree, that they invite this this evil influence to come to them, to test them in their spiritual integrity and in their abilities. And that's why actually I put this little picture of Emily Rose in it, because there is a part in the movie, a scene, actually this one, where she's completely lost, and this is like a dream state she's in. And the priest who does the exorcism, he's very emotionally engaged with her, and he's losing her. And he comes into this dream state and he says to her, you know you have a choice. You know you have a choice. And then she says, I realize now that it's Mother Mary who asked me to go through this ordeal, and I can go out of it, or I can stay and I can go through it the whole way. And then she's so, let's say, in kind of a rapture, I think, with Holy Mother Mary, that she says, I will stay, she says, instead of choosing to go out of it. That's an example of vexation. And it's definitely not for the weak-hearted and not for everyone. It's like a calling that you say, I volunteer almost to be invaded, to be attacked by evil influences, to be tested to extremes, to actually eventually to make the spiritual domain stronger and not weaker.
So I'm a bit confused. So why would somebody want to go through vexation? Just to prove that the good is greater than the evil? Because I don't know, like this doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, talking from a self-preservation point of view, this doesn't make sense at all. Like
yeah, well, maybe we can compare it by saying that on the Kabbalistic path, you say, well, I know that not everything can be good and funny and loving in the world. So I invite trouble because I know I need to learn. I don't want to get around it. So I say, bring it on and give me something to chew on, and I can pass it. Vexation is of a certain kind of level, which is not just an ordinary challenge that you invite. This is serious stuff. So here say, I've been gifted with the knowledge, for example, of the Christ within me. And therefore I invite or I challenge something of that order to come to me. And that's like in comparison to each other.
So it's like I've been training and I'm going to the Olympics to the Olympics. So bring me the biggest challenger, because like I'm gonna be like a gladiator and I'm just gonna go and and throw some punches. And wow.
Yeah, definitely. It really sounds like a competition. And all the different forms of intrusion that you see here are, of course, very related to also the church. Let's say that the way the church has categorized all these things. But in other cultures, you see more or less the same things happening. But it is within the Western culture and in Christianity that you find this opposition between good and evil.
Yeah.
And vexation seems to be an example of that competition, that battle going on between the light and the darkness.
Wow.
But not every form or every theory behind exorcism has to be that way.
Yeah.
So to be honest, my viewpoint on exorcism is not that extreme, in the sense of we have to defy evil or demonic forces, because also from the Kabbalistic point of view, they have their function, they have their position within existence. They are forthcoming out of the divine mind and will. So they need to have their proper position and function. Yeah.
Wow.
And to invite them on this level again, consciously yeah, that is quite something. Yeah.
Yeah, but you really have to be very, very strong in so many different levels, in so many different ways to be able to take on such a thing.
Yeah.
And people have to be mindful, because maybe your spiritual ego is so big, they say, I'm gonna do it, and they're not really ready, and it can be dangerous, I think.
You have to know exactly where you are. Like Christ knew who he was or what he was.
Yeah.
And that's a different thing. I have seen some examples of people who have just said, well, you know, when I appear in the spirit of Christ or whoever it is, then I am the light and nothing can touch me. And I said, that's extremely naive, because there
yes.
are metaphysical evil forces that are as old as the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And they will, like, really, they will just incinerate you, psychologically at least.
Yeah.
So you really need to know where you are, what you are, and to know your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, yeah.
I think it's best not to meddle. Like, if you're a normal person, just don't do that. Like, you know?
Well, like my Halevi, Zev Bon Shimon Halevi, the Kabbalah tradition said, when people would try to move into areas that they're not ready for, whatever it is, good or evil, he would say, don't you have enough trouble? So try to just first deal with the daily challenges of normal living.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't handle them, then even don't consider these kind of things. And
Yeah.
yeah, and you can meet them every day. I mean, I was walking actually last Friday night in the city. I had a meeting with two friends. I walked home, and of course, the atmosphere in the city changes after, let's say, 11 or 12 more drunken people.
Mm.
And I walked through this back alley because it was a short cut for me. And there
Mm.
was a dark man, so a dark-skinned man standing there. I'm saying this for a reason, because I passed him by, and he said to me, pardon my French now, but he said to me, fuck you, white man, he said to me.
Oh
So
boy.
that is a temptation, you
Ah,
know.
yes.
It may not be like a psychological attack. It may also be a spiritual temptation and attack at the same time. So what are you going to do with these kind of things?
Yeah.
So if I cannot deal with like this remark, this comment from a human
Mm.
being uh, who's drunk, really.
Yeah.
So how would I be possibly dealing with things with true trouble, so to speak? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah, so we have to be very real about these kind of things.
And how they can show up, because I mean,
Yeah.
the whole idea of this series of programs, because it will be plural, we will need maybe a couple more, but the whole idea behind this is, like, as you say, no, if you can barely manage your daily life, why are you going
Yeah.
to meddle into the paranormal? And we might not be aware. You're just making me aware of this right now with what you just shared, that even the paranormal, no, is embedded in everyday life. Like, because you said, like,
Yeah.
what you went through, that's a temptation, and you can
Mm.
decide,
Yeah.
am I going to respond to it? And it can be a spiritual temptation, but because, let's say, talking about other cases like this that I've heard about, for example, no, one person that yells at another on the street, and then this
Yeah.
other person responds and punches them, and then because of the punch, the person falls down and then dies. How
Yeah.
it escalates from something
Yeah.
apparently very normal
Mm.
to something that has even spiritual repercussions. You never know how
Yes.
far away it can get. So, wow. Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
be very, very mindful about how you interact with the world, because
Mm.
this is there all the time. And not only like face to face, but also, as you said, even in social media,
Yeah.
it can get very, very nasty, very, very fast. And that's the temptation. No, am I going to respond to people who you don't even know, no, who have
Yeah.
no interference in your real life? Am I
Yeah.
going to, you know? You're just giving
Exactly.
me a big lesson right now, dear Mike.
Well, and that's why it's so important, I think, to look at temptation and these kind of things on a daily level. And everyone can be a representation, ourselves including, of some kind of form of this tempting force. Like this man, he would come at the right time, so to speak, to tempt me on different things, not just one thing.
Of course.
Because there are different things going on within me when it happens. What do I choose? And that is the most important question. Yeah,
that's right.
There you go.
So do I choose to go to the center, no, as you say, or do I choose to go to one extreme or the other? What am I going to do?
Of course. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So those are examples. Vexation. Yeah, that's not for everyone. And then we have oppression. So that's like literally pressure being put upon you as a person. And that's something that we might feel and experience on a daily basis. And it's like a kind of exorcism light for people who find that they're under the sway of some kind of evil or negative influence. And they meet it in their daily routines. Nothing works. Like, my friends leave me, or I have a row with everyone. I have a falling out with people. I'm losing my job. My marriage is going down the drain. Like a whole series of events that maybe, it's not always the case, maybe are falling under this category of oppression. So something going on. It may be self-induced, may not be per se an external entity that is part of your life, but it may be something that is self-induced through certain circumstances. So
can you tell us more? A little bit more about it, because I'm just like, what?
Yeah. What happened here? So oppression on a personal psychological level, it would mean like someone with extremely low self-esteem, very low self-image, and it oppresses itself, and therefore the effects that it causes in its own life from the inside out are destructive. And therefore, according one's own self-knowledge and negative image, the way that we look at ourselves, we manifest certain things within our daily life. And often there is no, let's say, knowledge between what happens on the inside in relation to what happens on the outside. So the person might be like shocked or surprised by all the negative things and the decaying that's happening around him or her. While it may be possible that it is self-induced through what's happening on the inside. So that's actually on the lower astral field, or the etheric field that we are talking about, the inner mirror. And it's also a powerhouse. So that field is an energy body, as we know from Kabbalah. So what we think, what we feel, what we remember, what we see in that image has an effect upon the inner world, so also physically, and it may mirror out within the outer world and affect the people around us. And it might push away people, or it might actually draw them in. If you're full of love within that body, people may actually don't find that negative influence and they want to be with you. Or with oppression, you push them outwards, and you find this decay and dissimulation behind you, or around you, sorry. Yeah.
So how can a person who's going through, because, well, talking about these things, at these three first levels, temptation, you have to self-regulate. That's how you're going to solve it. Vexation, you will need external help. You will need the help from an exorcist or a priest or something, because you're not going to manage that on your own. And then oppression, how can a person who's going through that, and I think we all go through this at some point in our lives,
Yes.
How can a person manage to get out of this state of oppression?
Well, often, or through trial and error, that because of the repetition of negative cycles in your life, you come eventually to the conclusion, this is not just something outside of me, it happens inside of me. If the person can resolve it somehow, then of course you can try to do it yourself. But often people with serious problems with oppression, they also need external help. So, or because you need to be notified, that people say, but don't you see that this is self-induced, and you need to do something about you, because this is not just the outer world. And often people, because of the suffering, they become very angry, resentful in the world, and it becomes even worse. So, yeah. So the most important thing is to say, all right, let's go inside and see what needs to be healed there. And as an effect, the outside world will be healed as well. So that's oppression from a personal psychological level. Of course, there are also things that are, let's say, like a hybrid form between a psychological problem, but also when we unconsciously, most of the time, invite real negative entities to actually come with us. You give them a ride, actually, in your etheric field. And they are in conformity with the negative things that are actually within the mirror of your own psyche. So if you're very angry, then those entities may have or find a way to cling on and to travel with you, and it becomes worse. Wow. Sometimes these are called like how they're called, let me see, well, like vampires or larvae. So they are like subtle vehicles and beings that are hijacking you in this particular way. And people, again, who are sensitive to these things, they may even see them or sense them, and they need to be taken from you eventually. So
we're still talking about the level of oppression, is that correct?
Still talking oppression. I'm just saying that oppression comes most of the time psychologically from the person, and sometimes you see these hybrid forms of psychological, spiritual oppression. It means the person is so long in a state of disbalance and because of anger, whatever's going on, that he or she attracts external entities that are actually now attached to the emotions themselves within the etheric field, and then it becomes more difficult to get rid of it. And that's also a possibility.
So if a person is in the oppression stage, if they're only going through that in the psychological level, maybe they can get a help from a psychologist or a therapist to deal with that, no? But if it escalates, as you say, to that spiritual part where you're going to have these entities stuck to you, or these little beings, then you would need another kind of, would it be like, at this point, you need the help of an exorcist?
Yeah, or someone of that kind who, first of all, is exactly who is vigilant and who can sense and see these kind of things happening in the etheric field, and also has the skills to purify it, like to brush or to wash away these stains from the etheric field, which is not most of the time a very difficult thing to do.
Oh,
but you just need a few. You just need a few skills to do it, because it's still on the outer layers of our physicality.
Yeah. But if it's left unattended, could it cause like physical ailments, like disease?
Yeah, it can definitely. Yeah, like chronic fatigue syndrome might be, not saying, but might be an effect of this. Sometimes we say these like vampiric elements within the etheric field, they cause like a leakage within the body, in the etheric body, and then it's like streams, the etheric energy streams out of the body, and it needs to be mended and needs to be healed. It's like blood running from your body. It needs to, of
the
course,
vitality.
Exactly. Yeah.
Also,
yeah. And it happens to people like they're in a bad state, in a bad period, because I don't know, because someone died, or there's a difficult divorce, and this happens naturally. It just drains them, and then you may have to deal with certain extra entities because someone has been angry for a few years because of a divorce, and so yeah, these entities may cling on, and that's a problem. Yeah, so sometimes you need different help for different problems. Yeah, like you said.
So if a person is going through this oppression, for example, psychologically, and they play the Ouija or they do rituals, then they're at greater risk to have something stuck to them. Is that correct?
That is very correct. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why most of the time a Ouija board or the like are not the right method to come to any kind of healing. On the contrary. Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, the most important thing is that you get clarity, and that you get insight into what has caused the oppression within you. And like I said, the greatest cause of it is often the person themselves. Yes. And that's not to say that they are to blame, but they need to have that clarity and insight where it came from, and to break the loop, to break the circle, so they can adopt a new pattern of living, a new routine, which is very possible. Very possible, of course.
It takes work, but it's possible, definitely. Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes it needs like faith to believe in something new, and to actually sublimate and lift you out of an old state. Or a mythological spiritual upheaval, like you say, you need a new guidance in your life. And we talked about this before, of course, personally and in programs, that everyone needs a myth, like Joseph Campbell says. And to get out of this oppression state, I mean, Campbell talked about oppression as a metaphor. Oppression collectively is, the metaphor is, in Star Wars, is Darth Vader and his mechanical hordes.
Oh, yes.
That's the mechanical society around us, which is not per se evil, but if we live in conformity with it, we lose our connection with our, let's say, more organic soul life within ourselves.
With our humanity.
Well, exactly. That's the right word for it. That's our humanity. That may lead to oppression. People do not get happy, most of people, wherever on the planet, if they only live in conformity with society. And so that's another thing to consider there. Yeah.
Wow. Who would have thought the complexity of this? Wow.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's why it's so important that an exorcist or another kind of healer who works with these things is extremely well informed about all the different clinical psychological possibilities in combination with these more spiritual classifications of disorder, so that you can distinct one from another, or even say, well, this might be a combination of the two. Because as you can see, it's very responsible work to do, and quite complex.
It sounds like that. Definitely.
It sounds like that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I think that many people who are listening to what we're talking about, they're gonna see some reflection of experiences throughout their life that we might not have realized, that this has to do with, of course, oneself, but also like the riches of this thing, like how far it reaches out to one decision, no, coming from temptation, moving on to oppression, and it's more complex than just the human experience. It goes beyond that. So yeah, that's a lot to ponder about. You have given us a lot of food for thought. So if you want, maybe we can stop here for now. This has been a super interesting conversation, dear Mike. And so, anything else you would like to add for our listeners, for our synchronauts, about what we just discussed today?
Well, I think that the last thing you said is very important, is that all this theory that we are talking about is not far from us. So I would say take heed, and if you're interested in spiritism, then just be very mindful and think about the possible consequences. And just make sure that you have that you consider well what you're doing. And I think it would be more of an investment to look at the things that we talked about just yet, like, what are my temptations in life? How can I see them? How can I resist them? How can I regulate them in my life? And the same with oppression, because we all suffer from it. I think it is more of value to our lives than to take an Ouija board and try to find the answers. The psyche really is like a mirror house. It has all the answers available, but we have to ask the right questions through the right means. And so I would not do it again through an Ouija board or something, or a game. But yeah,
we have other ways to connect to that information, to that inner knowing, that are safer. And they're gonna be better for us in the long term. So
exactly. And the outer world, like we gave a few examples, the outer world is the perfect mirror. If it's difficult to have a view inside, which is sometimes very complex, the psyche on the inside is a very complex thing, but sometimes therefore it is easier to have a look on the outside. And like the example I gave you, and I have many more, just have a look what happens on a daily basis, and then you will find all these beautiful pieces of information that has to do with you. Much more valuable than a Ouija board, I would say. Much more trustworthy and clear. But we have to stay awake, not sleepwalk. And then you can find these messages all around you.
Just be mindful of it. Definitely.
Very much.
Wow. So, Mike, can you please share with us how people can get in touch with you? What are your social media accounts, so that if people have a question or anything else that they would like to know, how can they contact you?
Yes. Websites are circleofavalon.nl from Netherlands, and then you have Kabbalah Mystical School.com. So that's for general information. And my social account, most of the time I use some Facebook. I only post spiritual messages and some teaching there. So that would be my normal name, Mike Bais, or Circle of Avalon, the two pages which are connected, and the book page, of course, where you can find all the books, and some Instagram on my name. And my email address.
I'm gonna put the whole information in the description of the video, but and your email address. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, don't worry about it. That's mikebais at rockmail.com. Mikebais at rockmail.com. So if you have any questions about this program, of course, can go directly to you. And
well, please, Synchronauts, leave your comments here and your experiences and any questions you might have for Mike.
Definitely.
We will record another program. I don't know, maybe in a few weeks. We're gonna give it a bit of a but we will continue this topic because it's very, very interesting. Even though the portal is like ending now, but I think that everything that you're talking about, because people might feel tempted to delve into these things anyways, or have these kinds of encounters with entities any other time of the year, and it's important to know what to do and what not to do. And you're giving us great context and a great background. So Thank you so much, dear Mike. Thank you, Synchronauts, and we'll see each other very, very soon for the third part. And I don't know how many more we will have because, oh my God, this is so interesting. Thank you so much, dear Mike, for sharing your knowledge with us.
My pleasure, really. Yeah.
All right, Synchronauts. Well, we'll see each other very soon. Until then, take care and see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.